The council meeting of January 15th will come to order. Good evening. Would ask that all in attendance turn off or silence your electronic devices, and if you would please stand to honor God and country. Father God, we lift prayers to you that our city may prosper in all things and be in health, just as our souls prosper. May the work of this council be a testimony for your glory in 2019. May all in this city experience more joy and less judgment, more action and less yaption, more of you and less of self. Bathe us with courage, patience, diligence, and laser-like focus. Amen. The pledge to our great nation this evening will be led by Eagle Scout Max Cochran of Troop 120. Max, if you would please step to the podium.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Max. Persons wishing to address council, there are forms available in the back of the room, and once completed may be turned into the clerk to my right. I would ask that once again, Max Cochran, Eagle Scout from Troop 120, come to the podium. And the City of Temple Terrace this evening is presenting a certificate of recognition to Max Cochran in recognition of his earning the rank of Eagle Scout, which is the highest advancement in Boy Scouting. Max recently earned his Eagle Scout rank through the Florida Gulf Ridge Council of the Boy Scouts of America. He is a member of Boy Scout Troop 120 and a student at Summerlin Academy. Max's Eagle Scout Community Service Project involved building a deck to be used as an outdoor classroom for Summerlin Academy. Teachers had expressed a desire to have a place to hold outdoor classes. He designed the deck and assured every section of the deck was at proper elevation, even though it was built on a significant slope. He led his team in the construction of the deck that was a dedicated endeavor and demonstrated his commitment to the community and his desire to make a tangible difference. These values are intrinsic to Scouting and sets a great example for his peers. This evening, we honor and salute Max for the attainment of such a prestigious goal as Eagle Scout. Max Cochran. And Max, prior to me presenting you with the recognition certificate, would you like to introduce the guest you've brought with you this evening and say a few words?
Thank you, ma'am. First, I would like to say thank you to the City Council for having me here today. It has been an honor. I'd also like to thank you for Troop Pack 188 come here to share this incredible moment with me as well. And I also would like to thank the cities for having my troop here in Temple Terrace as well. And as last but not least, I'd like to thank my family, my mom first, for helping me on the pathway to Eagle, and my dad, but he's unfortunately could not make it today due to a work conference. I just want to say it has been a great, honorable moment.
Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely, Councilman Donahue.
I'd like to introduce, we have some guests here tonight who are here to recognize someone they would like to emulate as they grow older, and that is Cub Scout Pack 188, and they will be flying up to 120 next year. So, Max, the boys behind you are watching you. They're here tonight as a two-part lesson. One is to come and watch City Council in action, and the second one will be a presentation, interactive presentation at their meeting in the next few weeks. So I just wanted to recognize that all these young men and their parents are here and looking forward to being Eagle Scouts one day as well. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for being with us this evening. Next, if Chief Arborist Joe Ferris would please approach the podium. Mr. Ferris, a proclamation from the City of Temple Terrace. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of topsoil by wind and water, lower heating and cooling cost, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide a habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, now therefore I, Mel Gerardo, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Temple Terrace, do hereby proclaim January 19th, 2019, the third Saturday of January, as Temple Terrace Arbor Day, and April 26th, 2019, as National Arbor Day. In Temple Terrace, we urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees, our woodlands, and further urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Joe, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council members. This year marks our 11th year as a Tree City USA designation by the Arbor Day Foundation. And this Saturday, I'll be holding our Arbor Day event at River Hills Park at the gazebo around 10:30 in the morning, where we'll be providing 30 red maple saplings to anyone who comes out and participates. I'll be giving out their information to answer any questions any residents have about trees, about our adopted tree program, and anything along those lines. Thank you.
Next, if Principal Ann Perez would please come forward as a representative of school choice in our community. The National School Choice Week is hosted nationally from January 20th to 26th and is used to promote and raise awareness among parents of K through 12 education options available to their children. In 2017, more than 720 mayors and county leaders, along with 32 governors, the unanimous United States Senate, and the President issued proclamations recognizing National School Choice Week. This evening, we present the following proclamation to Principal Ann Perez, one of many schools in Temple Terrace that is a recognition of the choice our parents have. And in Temple Terrace, we absolutely value robust options for our parents and our families. So this evening we present a proclamation of the City of Temple Terrace. Whereas all children in Temple Terrace should have access to the highest quality education possible, and whereas Temple Terrace recognizes the important role that an effective education plays in preparing students in Temple Terrace to be successful adults, and quality education is critically important to the economic vitality of Temple Terrace, and whereas Temple Terrace is home to a multitude of high-quality public and non-public schools from which parents can choose for their children, in addition to the families who educate their children in the home, and whereas educational variety not only helps to diversify our economy, but also enhances the vibrancy of our community. And whereas Temple Terrace has many high-quality teaching professionals in all types of school settings who are committed to educating our children, and whereas School Choice Week is celebrated across the country by millions of students, parents, educators, schools, and organizations to raise the awareness of the need for effective educational options. Now, therefore, I, Mel Gerardo, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of Temple Terrace, Florida, hereby proclaim January 20th, 2019 through January 26, 2019 as Temple Terrace School Choice Week. Principal Perez, on behalf of School Choice Options, would you like to say a few words?
I know through Hillsborough County, choice is a fabulous option for many families and children. The different choice options that are available can be for STEM, it could be for the arts, lots of different varieties that can meet the child's individual needs. So luckily that is available. I know at Temple Terrace Elementary, we have over 100 students that come to us through the choice program that would not have the opportunity otherwise. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Next, we'd like to invite Kim Straub to the podium to make a presentation to our Leisure Services Director, Carl Langfeld. Ms. Straub.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Thank you for having us. Elaine is here also, our treasurer, and she's going to be doing the heavy lifting tonight. If we could run a brief video that we made to introduce what the Arts Council does.
People tend to say, oh, I can't do that. I can't be creative. But then when you put something in front of them, like a blank fish, it's amazing how creative people can get, and it shows up in your public space. Now, every time they pass that, they see, oh, I am part of the community.
And they can go back to it and have a sense of pride in the work that they did and also in the community that they live in.
The mission
of the Temple Terrace Arts Council is to bring art and culture to the community
and beyond.
It's a group of people from different cross sections of life who love art, appreciate art, who are interested in engaging the community and want to see art in their community.
The Arts Festival is a wonderful event, attracts thousands of people both days, hundreds of artists and crafters. It's the only two-day big event, and it's had a great impact. The people that live here look forward to the festival and enjoy the art and the outdoor spaces of Temple Terrace.
Arts education is not necessarily funded at the same level as some other subjects. I think that the Arts Council has an opportunity to maybe fill a void and give kids that opportunity to engage in art and learn about it.
The special events in our city, like the Arts Festival and the other events the Arts Council does, makes the community very, very strong. A reason for people to live here, continue to live here, and move here.
In our community, we have such an appreciation of the beauty of the environment that when you add that little sprinkle of art in between it, it really creates a lovely atmosphere, I think, for all of our citizens.
I'd like to thank him for the video. We had a fabulous festival this year. My goodness, we set a goal of 8,000 attendees, and we exceeded our goal. Since we moved to Woodmont Park, we have increased attendance every year by 25%. I think in part we can thank the Garden Club for having their standard garden show there, and also for the trot through the terrace. But we were very happy. We had 92 zip codes, 13 states, and 70% of the people who attend are from the Tampa Bay area. We celebrated also at that time our 20th anniversary of Fresh Views, which is the children's art exhibit for K-5. And this year we topped 6,000 cumulative pieces of art that we've shown, which is amazing. And we added a cell phone exhibit. And this year we added 2 more schools, middle schools, to that exhibit. So when we say that it takes a village to put together the festival, we're not kidding. Many people may not know that it takes over $40,000 to produce the 2-day festival. And fortunately, we had 45 sponsors who came forth. It was just amazing with in-kind gifts. And we would also like to thank the hundreds of volunteers, the Chamber of Commerce, who's here tonight, the Mayor's Youth Council, who was just out of this world, King High School honors students, the Boy Scout Troop 120, and members of Temple Terrace civic organizations, without whose energy and enthusiasm this would not have happened. Clearly, this festival belongs to all of us. Thank you, everyone. Please mark your calendar now for November 9th and 10th. We are here tonight to thank the city, however. All of you, our law enforcement folks, professionals, Lori Hayes, Teresa Fraser, and particularly our dear friends at Leisure Services who are here tonight. Phil, John, Carl, thank you. And everything from lights to logistics they took care of for us. We are so grateful and could not have done it without them, including the heartwarming Veterans Day celebration. We are very fortunate to live in such an amazing city and to have so many amazing people supporting this two-day event. So we would like to hand this wonderful check for $4,000 over to Leisure Services to be used for Parks and Recreation Arts.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, City Council, I'm Phil Jeter, Supervisor with Parks and Recreation. On behalf of my department, I'd like to say thank you to the Arts Council for their continued support and for this generous donation. This money will be used to continue to develop and enhance our programming in the city. So once again, thank you to the Arts Council for their support.
Picture.
Very nice. For a State of the School presentation, would invite the following individuals to the podium. From Temple Terrace Elementary, Principal Ann Perez, Coach Anthony Macaluso, and Janet Mistretta.
Get on up here. We're a team. Good evening. I'm Ann Perez, the proud principal at Temple Terrace Elementary. And also with me this evening, I have Janet Mistretta. She is a 5th grade math science teacher, as well as Coach Mac, who is our PE coach, otherwise known as Anthony Macaluso. But everybody knows him as Coach Mac. I have a brief presentation of our school, and they would like to share about their grants that you generously funded last year. Currently, we are up to 634 students. We've had 20 new students that have started since we've returned from Christmas break. So we continue to fill those classrooms regularly. We've been monitoring the data closely. We are at 90% free lunch. And our attendance is up, which we are happy to see, up to 94.7%. It's up a whole percentage from last year, so we've been working hard with that, even with the earlier start time. So our kids have been getting to school, so we appreciate that. And school starts at 7:40 this year, as in the past it's already started at 8 o'clock. So that's been a little shift for everybody, but we're working on it. We've just completed an iReady diagnostic test. We have 3 a year. We've just completed the second one. So based on that data, our reading is the children have grown by 52%, with a highlight of our 3rd graders who have increased by 82%. So we are real proud of what's happening in our 3rd grade. And then for math, we've increased by 44%, with a highlight for our 4th graders who have increased by 57%. So our teachers have been working really hard. We've been monitoring the data. We have ELP tutoring, all kinds of different groups going on throughout the school day, supporting individual student needs. So we are making sure that each student is being touched on their individual level, which is a lot of work. We have increased parent involvement this year. We've started a STEM muffins for moms, and then we had donuts for dads. The turnout was absolutely amazing. Those of you that have seen our cafeteria, it was standing room only. For the muffins for moms, we actually ran out of muffins because we had so many people in attendance. We were scrambling in the cafeteria, what do you have that we can serve? Because we wanted to make sure that everyone received something. But they had fun, engaging activities where they were building towers with toothpicks and marshmallows, and it was so fun to watch the moms and the dads with their child trying to figure out who can build the tallest, and it was just amazing to encounter. And thank you, Coach, I know that you participated with that as well. Upcoming, we have a field day on February 1st, and we have bingo night. We're going to have our very first bingo night on February 21st, so it'd be fun to have the parents and the families and grandmas and aunties to come on out and just have a fun night just to play a little bit of bingo. I would like to mention a few of our contributors that help fund our school and our extra programs. I know I'd like to thank Sherry Donahue for serving on our SAC committee. That great addition, and we appreciate all that you do for Temple Terrace Elementary. Temple Terrace Junior Women's Club. They are our school supply. We had a rush on hand sanitizer, tissues, and paper. We made an announcement that we had a donation. I think it was gone in 2 minutes flat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because that is such a hot commodity. So it was quite interesting to see that, but it was amazing, and we do appreciate anything that we get. The juniors also support our Teacher Appreciation Week. They provide teacher snacks for conference night, and they also provide food for our weekend backpack program for some of our neediest students. We would also like to thank the Temple Terrace Friendship Club. They provide school supplies. Suncoast Credit Union, they come and do a game of life, which is basically like a live Monopoly game that the students do. They give in a card, and some of them are married, and some have children, and some have this income, and it's quite interesting just to watch them go through life. And Suncoast also supplies clinic supplies for our clinic. St. Catherine Episcopal Church has been amazing with their school supplies, their food for our weekend backpack program, and our uniforms. They call us up frequently, what can we help with? And they always follow through, so we appreciate that. Also, the law firm of Ward and Mitchell. They have called us, what can we help with? They've provided technology support as well as food for our conference night, for those late nights with our teachers. And the last thing, sorry, got this flipped around, is our grants. I know this year you funded a book study grant that we're going to do as professional development with our entire staff. And then last year you funded one for coding and one for PE equipment that my teachers would like to discuss. Who would like to go first?
I'll jump in there.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to thank the City Council for having us up here and supporting our school systems. We greatly appreciate all your help. Our grant was under the PE title, but it was really for our entire school. As a PE coach, I see our students twice a week. They come out to me twice a week, and we have, we have equipment for them for the PE department especially. On the other days, the other 3 days a week, they come out with their teachers for teacher-directed PE or recess. And that equipment is completely separate from what I use for my everyday lessons. As a school, when I came in 4 years ago, we didn't have enough to provide teachers with that equipment. They would have to bring their own. They would have to buy it out of their pocket. They'd have to have the kids drag it out every single day. They would lose stuff. They would misplace it. They would need balls and equipment pumped up every week. It was just a big hassle. So through this grant, we were able to purchase enough equipment to just have it for the teacher-directed PE. So our whole school, K through 5, every day they have their own equipment cart that we roll out there of brand new equipment. It was enough equipment that I could stock the cart for the first semester of school, and as the equipment gets worn down, we have a backup supply that we were able to purchase as well, where I can replace equipment that gets damaged or is overused and needs to be replaced. So the kids have like I said, their own cart with all different activities, all different equipment, and it was all because of the grant that you guys funded for us. And without that, the teachers would still be having to buy their own stuff out of their own pockets, and it would just be a hassle. So it has been a great addition to our school from, like I said, from kindergarten through 5th grade. So I appreciate it, and I know our teachers greatly appreciate it, so thank you.
I'd like to thank you also for the opportunity of giving my students this wonderful learning experience using the Spiro robots. This is what they look like. They're just a little round ball. They're controlled with a tablet, which I didn't bring the tablet to show you, but they all light up, and some of the pictures I have will show you kind of what they look like. But the children code them to either turn or the rate of speed, stopping. And the first project they did was to draw a maze on chart paper or bulletin board paper. Yeah. And they had to program it through the maze. Then from there we went on to an obstacle course where they had to do a tunnel and a ramp and program it also to go through that course. And then my final science one was a design challenge of building a chariot, which had to be powered by the Spiro robot. I just put out various materials they had to gather. There's one picture of kind of the chariots. The one that I didn't think was going to make it actually won the race that we had, so it kind of surprised me. And then we had Roman Day when we raced the chariots, and there's a picture of the kids all dressed up in togas. So they had a great time with that. Then I also used it for math, which they're lacking multiplication facts, getting those facts quickly. So there's a shower curtain with numbers on it, and they used it to, you know, one student will hold up the like 5 times 7, and they have to race the robots to that answer. So that encouraged them to learn them quickly. Mm-hmm. And then one of the new standards for 5th grade is using coordinate grids. And they always have problems knowing, do I go up first or do I go to the x-axis first? Which way do I go? So I used those. I created a shower curtain again with a grid. And they would practice going, you know, over and up, and we practiced different ways. And that was the first test that every student passed using the coordinate grids. So we haven't taught it this year, but I'm hoping for the same success, that when they get to that part that they also will fully understand the grid. So I do thank you again for the opportunity, and the children just love this.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
And thank you again for all of your support and what you do for Temple Terrace Elementary.
Thank you, Ms. Mistretta, Coach Mack, and Principal Perez. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Next, our Riverwatch Task Force would ask Chairman Nathan Redmond to come to the podium, and he will be presenting an update on the Stormwater grant that the Riverwatch Task Force has received and how the money will be invested. Nathan.
Okay. Very well. Good evening, City Council. Tonight I want to bring good news to City Council. I'm all about good news. And we were in receipt, the city is the winners of this one, is in receipt of a grant for stormwater education from the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. The funds come from Florida Department of Transportation, and we were in receipt of a grant for stormwater education in the amount of $2,800. Now, you're asking, well, what are you going to do with that $2,800? And that is a great question, and I'm going to answer that. For this, the project that we're putting together as part of the Riverwatch Task Force mission and vision is an outreach to the community, to educate the community in the pollution, the litter, and impacts on the Hillsborough River, since the Hillsborough River is so much a part of this community and this city. So what we have done with this is we have gone out there and tried to put together a professional table that we can go to the city events and set up and reach out to our city residents and inform them of the impacts that stormwater has on the Hillsborough River. So we've asked for everything from tables, chairs, poster displays. We've asked for money to build posters, educational posters, as well as educational postcards that we'll hand out. I'll show you all a couple examples here in just a moment, as well as promotional items that have just different little various logos on them that says, you know, keep Hillsborough River pollution and litter free, or just whatever the slogan we may put on it. Just is a simple little daily reminder. Okay, hopefully we can reach out there and somebody sees it and goes, maybe I should put this in the trash can, or maybe I should point my fertilizer spreader in a different direction today. That's all. If we can just impact one, we've made a big difference. But some of the promotional items that we have gone out and gotten, as well as the educational materials, is This is what the postcard will look like that we'll give out that has just basic information of how the individual, and that's what we targeted, just how the individual can make an impact on a daily basis by doing simplistic things just in and around their home or in and around the city. The next item was, I didn't bring the full poster in here, but I brought an example of it. It's roughly a poster that's going to be 18 by 36, and it has, again, steps that we can teach and show, everything from adults to kids, of what they can do at their home and make those impacts. And then finally, the promotional materials. So I'll just kind of hand these out, y'all can pass them down, and I'll collect them at the end. Those are the examples of what we'll have at our table. The table, if everything is approved, will also have a table skirt that will say something along the lines of City of Temple Terrace, Riverwatch Task Force Stormwater Education. What we want to do is we want to show that we're good stewards, and that's what this grant is about. If we can just reach one or two people and make the impacts, then we've done what we tried to set out for this outreach program. And I remember as just a resident before I got onto the Riverwatch Task Force Board, I saw a table at it, believe it or not, the Arts Fair, and it had Mr. John Olson standing at this table, and he had a picture, I believe it was, of an alligator, if I'm correct. And he had a little ball of floatable keychains. And I am a boater, so I actually needed a floatable keychain, so that drew my attention. And I went over there and I got the keychain from him, and that started a conversation, and, well, 3 years later, here I am. Okay? So did he make a difference with that outreach? Absolutely. And I know that that was just the starts of the outreach, and since then we've been working on it. Last year we participated in a couple of different events. One of them was Touch a Truck. And we reached out to the community and had a lot of individuals stop by the table, but the one thing that I did notice is we just didn't have anything to say what we were. We weren't very well set up, and the materials that we had were kind of sort of all over the place and weren't focused. This grant's going to allow us to focus. This grant's going to allow us to have a professional table. This grant's going to bring the awareness out to the public, and it is definitely going to be eye-catching for the city and let everyone know that the city is well into being good stewards of the land and of the river. So that is what we are doing with this grant. I just wanted to take the opportunity tonight to let you all know what's going on, the good news, and what we plan to do with that money.
Thank you, Chairman Redmond. And I would ask, as the liaison from the council, if Councilman Ross had any comments to make.
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, I'm the liaison to the Riverwatch Task Force. I also serve on the Interlocal River Board with the City of Tampa and Hillsborough County Commission. I have to tell you that this was, although a few introductions were made here and there, this was all on Chairman Redmond's initiative that this grant was applied for and received. This was not something that me or somebody else put in his hand and said, here, fill this out and you'll get money. This was on his own initiative, and this is the kind of thing that we heard from the Arts Council, we hear from the Boy Scouts, we hear from all these things that make Temple Terrace special. Is a lot of it is accomplished by citizen volunteers. So that really is what makes this community different. And so I applaud you and the rest of the Riverwatch Task Force for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, if the minutes of the December 18th, 2018 City Council meeting are acceptable, would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve.
Move to approve from Councilman Donahue. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Schisler. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Thank you. Minutes stand approved. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda, a 3-minute time limit will be imposed on all comments from the public. Individual members of the public who are present in the audience may designate in writing a representative to speak on their behalf, not extending beyond a 10-minute period. As speakers come to the podium, please state your name and your city of residence. During public comment on items that are not on the agenda, the city manager and the directors in attendance do make note of these items. During the city manager's report later in the agenda, Mr. Stevenson may make comment on items related to city business, or where further research is needed, he or staff that he assigns will follow up. Sherman Smith.
Madam Mayor, City Councils, my name is Sherman Smith. I live at 11313 Lien Place, Rustic Village, Temple Terrace. That butts up right against Greco Junior High School, and it's off of 113th Street. We have 16 homes there, and I was at the last meeting voicing my concern about Airbnb. My concern has not decreased. I guess my encouragement is that Mr. Barani and Mr. Stevenson have been very responsive, and they have called me, and we've had conversations. And also Tina up in the Code Enforcement Office has been very helpful, and they are working on things. But we still have issues and concerns. I get up one morning and look across the street. There's 5 vehicles, 2 of them trucks, 3 cars. Don't know who they are. People come out in the yard. I see them. I don't know who they are. 2 or 3 days later, I get up in the morning. I see 4 or 5 different vehicles in the yard, in the driveway, with several other different people I don't know. And that has been repeated and repeated. My wife and I, Sylvia, have lived there for 31 years. Temple Terrace is a beautiful city, and we've enjoyed the golf course, the community, and all the amenities of Temple Terrace. But this Airbnb is a black spot, I think, especially in a neighborhood next to a junior high school. That house backs right up against Greco Middle School. Another concern. I grew up in a farm in Kentucky, and I never was suspicious of my neighbors because I knew them all. I have lots of good neighbors here today. They make me feel comfortable, and they're good neighbors, and I know them all. But this situation is not good for our city. It's not good for my neighbors. It's not good for me. It's not good for the street. It's not good for Greco Middle School. It is a real concern, and I'm glad to hear that Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Morano are working on it. What I look for is solutions. I don't like to bring problems, but I do want to thank them for their attention. And one other issue, I know they're working on some presentation for the council. I won't be able to stay long enough to hear it, but there's been things in the past about grandfathering things in, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I will tell you, I've been there longer than they have, and I think I'm the grandfather of the street now. We have a lot of grandchildren who ride their bikes up and down the street. All these things are safety issues that we're very concerned about and would appreciate all the help we can get to correct this, to have some rules, regulations, guidelines, something that the short-term, I call them nomads. I don't know what else you could call them. They come 2 or 3 days and they move on to somewhere else. So we would appreciate the help, and we do appreciate the help. But any questions that you have of me or any of our neighbors on Lien Place, please come by and check us out. And code enforcement has been coming by regularly, and the police department has been coming by more regularly, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to communications and petitions. Item 4A, a municipal code enforcement board lien reduction petition for the property located at 7442 Terrace River Drive. Our municipal code enforcement board chair, Richard Smith, will present the case. Mr. Schmidt.
I'll do the best I can. Good evening, Madam Mayor, councilmen, and staff. This evening, I'm here to introduce the board's recommendation for a lien reduction for the property located at 12415 North 59th Street with the lien amount of $131,715 in the city versus Ayman Osman in case number 06-840. Case 13-1787, Case 14-1820, Case 14-2840, Case 15-1476, Case 15-1689, and Case 16-1465. The lien reduction request was presented to the board on December 12th, 2018. To the board meeting by Director Baroni. The property has been before the Municipal Code Enforcement Board for 7 sessions. However, we are happy to report that all cases are in compliance. With consideration of city cost and other considerations, No reduction in some cases and reductions in others was presented. After hearing from Director Baroni, the petitioner, Mr. Osmond, his attorney, and the board discussion, the board, on the recommendation as presented to the board by Director Baroni, was to reduce the total lien from $131,715 to $10,000.
He's mixing up. That's the other case.
I have another one, but anyway, I'll continue. But
He's on B. He's on, yeah, he started with B. Yes, sir.
did I get the wrong one first?
You started with B, that's okay.
Sorry. This one's the bigger one. By motion of a 4-2 vote, the recommendation to council is for the lien to be reduced from $10,000 to $10,000, with the stipulation that the reduced lien amount be paid in full within 30 days of the city council approval, or the lien amount will revert back to the full amount, $131,715. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And I do not know if the petitioner is here this evening or his attorney. The attorney's here. No, Mr. Osmond's here.
I would first ask Mr. Baroni, do you have anything to add to this?
Oh, Madam Mayor.
And if the property owner would like to address council?
Would you like to address council?
Are there any members of the public that would like to address council on this item? Council, do you have any questions of Mr. Schmidt? If council determines that the lien reduction is appropriate, would call for a motion to approve a lien reduction in the cases numbered 06-0840, 13-1787, 14-1820, 14-2840, 15-1476, 15-1689, and 16-1465. City versus Mr. Osman and Ms. Alzine for the property located at 12415 North 59th Street. Is there a motion?
Well, I'll make that motion, but I don't want to read all those numbers.
Thank you. We have
I'll
a
make those motions with the lien reduction payable in 30 days.
We have a motion from Councilman Chambers. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Chambers and a second from Councilman Donahue. Is there discussion, council?
It's just to move staff recommendation. Board recommendation.
Would ask all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Oppose the nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. And if we can now go back up to item 4A, which is the municipal lien reduction petition for the property located at 7442 Terrace River Drive. Mr. Schmidt.
I'm sorry for shifting my papers here. Again, good evening. I'm here this evening at this point to introduce the board's recommendation for a lien reduction for the property located at 7442 Terrace River Drive with a lien amount of $4,600. City versus Ayman Osman in case number 182-2006. This case originated in May of 2018 and came into compliance in June, a repeat violation given. The property came into compliance in October of 2018. The lien reduction request was presented to the board at the December 12th, 2018 board meeting by Director Baroni with consideration of city cost and other considerations. After hearing from Director Baroni, the petitioner, Mr. Osmond, his attorney, and board discussion, the board, on the recommendation as presented to the board by Director Baroni, to reduce the lien from $4,600 to $2,300. By motion of a 4-2 vote, the recommendation to the council is for the lien to be reduced to $2,300 with the stipulation that the reduced lien amount be paid in full within 30 days of the city council approval, or the lien amount will revert to the full amount of $4,600. Do you have any questions? Again, the petitioner is present.
I would first ask Mr. Barone, do you have anything to add to this case?
No, Madam Mayor.
Would the petitioner like to address council? Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to council on this item? Council, are there any questions? Councilman Donahue.
This is an exception. We have one homeowner who has two properties that, and I, after reading the minutes of your meeting, I just want to make sure that after this fine is paid, that we're not going to see this homeowner again, that the situation of him, he does now understand. I know, I hate to say he because I know he's sitting here, but he does now understand that these letters are important and that they mean business, and that no matter who opens it, he has to be responsible for handling these and not letting them go. I mean, in reading this, I was amazed that the conversation was as light as it was, because, I mean, just reading and not being there that evening, I can imagine the questions that must have been asked, or wanted to be asked.
There were questions, if I may respond. And the situation for Mr. Osmond, and I'm speaking for him because this is what we learned at our hearing. And Mr. Osmond has moved back to Temple Terrace and lives at 7442 Terrace River Drive, and is fully aware of
Okay, good.
what comes in the mail needs to be
Okay.
addressed, or just be in compliance. And I believe that he does understand that
Okay.
now, and we're welcoming him back. He was up in Newport Richie, so that was part of the issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Schmidt. Are there any other questions of council? If council determines that the lien reduction is appropriate, would call for a motion to approve a lien reduction in case number 18-2006, City versus Mr. Osman, for the property located at 7442 Terrace River Drive. Is there a motion?
I move to adopt the recommendation of the MCEB lien reduction petition covering property at 7442 Terrace River Drive.
Thank you. A motion from Councilman Schisler. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Councilman Chambers. Any further discussion?
Just that, did you want to add into the motion that it's payable within 30 days or it reverts back?
Yes, of course. I assume that was implicit in the original agreement. Yes, it must be paid within 30 days or it reverts.
Very good. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Schmidt. Next, moving to item 4C, a status lien reduction for the property located at 105 Deer Park Avenue. City Attorney Pam Shoshone will explain.
This case went before the Code Enforcement Board in November of last year. There had been initially several cases on this particular property. There were several violations. My understanding is that all of the violations had been taken care of except for one. There apparently was a tree branch that fell out of a neighbor's tree, landing on the defendant's property. And why no one picked it up is still not quite clear, but the tree branch remained on the property for which the property owner was cited. The property owner does not live at the property, I believe is a somewhat elderly woman. Her son, though, is the resident of the property. And I did see him here. Okay, he's here. And he received the notice that the legal department had sent out, letting everybody who had a lien on their property know that they had a lien on the property if it was not a homesteaded property. This is not a homesteaded property that we can tell from property records, and so a notice was received, and it caused some concern to Mr. Hernandez, who felt that he needed to come before the board and ask for a lien reduction in order to take care of that. He did so. He came before City Council. The recommendation was approved. However, it now appears that he has some difficulty in paying the reduced amount of the lien within the 30 days that City Council imposed upon him. He wanted to come back in front of the Code Enforcement Board or somebody to ask for an extension of time. We don't have any specific procedures written down by which someone can do that. He came in front of the Code Enforcement Board and presented his case to them. The Code Enforcement Board, understandably, did not feel that they had authority to recommend any reduction or to grant him any reduction, and felt that since council was the one that imposed or approved the recommendation that they initially made and imposed the time limit on it, that it's council that needs to hear his request. And as I said, he's here today. He can make his, it's up to council whether they want to entertain his request for additional time. Staff has made a recommendation that he be allotted a payment plan that he can pay $300 a month beginning February 1 until the lien is paid in full, and that if he misses one payment, that the amount of the lien reverts back to $34,375. If council does not want to hear that, that's your prerogative. If you do, then he's here to be called up.
Thank you, Ms. Shoshone. I would ask if Mr. Baroni or Chairman Schmidt have anything to add.
I don't have anything to add unless the council has something for me to ask.
Very good. Mr. Hernandez, would you like to address council? Yes, please. If you'd step forward.
Vincent Hernandez, 105 Deer Park. Excuse my attire, I came straight from work. I didn't get a chance. I'm working day and night. I haven't been working for many months because of disabilities and stuff like that. I'm paying bills on my own in there. I've raised my kids here in Temple Terrace for over 15 years. They went to Greco High School, Greco Middle School as well. I'm a member of the community. I've been here. I enjoy this community, and that's the reason why I chose to purchase here in Temple Terrace. But I have tried to abide by all laws and everything that had to be done. Originally, there was 3 items on there which I took care of right away, and I thought it was taken care of on all items. One was a fence that I didn't know I had to be permitted for. It was an extra allotted PVC fence in front of the separating, not separating the pool, but for in the front, so I'd be able to park another vehicle or something like that, or for my grandkids to play in or whatever, because my kids are all out of the house. So it's been difficult for me to pay bills on my own. But long story short, there was 3 violations. I took care of most of all 3. It was just 1 tree branch. I've had issues on this property for many years, through TICO and everything else for that power line and everything, all the tree lines. I have tried to maintain this property line. My neighbor is an elderly person who since has moved from there. I've trimmed out, even mowed his lawn. I mean, he's not all there. Now his niece is taking care of it. But I've had other damages. I've had over 11,000 in damages in electronics just from hitting things. I'm not that kind of person. I get along with all my neighbors, and he's an elderly guy. I don't want to. It's become costly. So it was a small, not very. It was about 7 feet, 6 or 7 feet long, maybe about 3 inches in diameter, I think, if I recall. But it was on the property line. That was the only one out there. I thought everything was taken care of at that time. After all, the other 2 items was with grass and I think the PVC fence that I've since removed because it needed a permit, and I didn't have the rest of the material. So this whole proceeding and all this has come about from this, from 2016, and now here we are. I've thought everything was okay, and I was in compliance, and in 2018, I'm being notified, and I don't recall or see anything for 2 years, but I'm being charged per day. It'd be senseless for me and irresponsible for me to allow that amount to add to that for a simple tree branch that I could throw on the truck or, do anything. I didn't know it was that. Be that as it may, this was being charged. So all of this was all for the tree branch. So it seems like an astronomical amount for a small item. But it is what it is, and I appreciate that lien reduction. It's something I'm able to work about, but my past job, taking that person, that investor to court because for non-payment, and had I known that these things would have happened, I wouldn't have had to come before you or anything because I would have had the money. Since then, I've had other clients, and I'm still working day and night to take care of it, to catch up, to pay other employees because I didn't receive all my final payment. So because of this, that's the reason why I need an extension or some kind of a payment plan, if at all possible, if it's within the means of your guidelines. It just helps me out. It's not that I'm not able to pay it. It's just I need a little time. It was December 18th. And it has to be paid by January 18th, which is in 3 days. So it's kind of a lot for me to come up with in that amount. So it's just, I respectfully ask for your understanding and see if there's anything I can do for that, whether it's payment or extension or anything I can do to take care of this matter. And the reason why before, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I know you were about to talk. I pushed for this to happen because I wanted it behind me. I could have taken more time, but I wanted this taken care of immediately because it was hanging over my head. I was very nervous about it. I've been here for over 15 years. But because of my actions, it became, now it's like crunch time, and I didn't know these other things would have happened.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Are there questions from Councilman Ross?
Mr. Hernandez, how much time are you asking us for? You haven't said.
Whatever is allowable.
No,
60 days, 90 days, I have to ask for, I'm not going to say 3 years.
I believe the recommendation of staff was $300 a month.
Well, I'm asking him what he's asking of us.
$300 a month would come out to about 6 months.
Okay.
If it's less time, that's okay too. I would accept anything that you
let me
can do.
Tell you, I don't know what's going to happen here tonight because I'm just one council member.
Correct.
I'm prepared to make a motion to extend the deadline. I don't know whether my colleagues are going to go along with that or not. We'll find out together. Personally, I'm not in favor of a payment plan for, there's about 6 different reasons why I'm not in favor of that we don't need to go into. Now, I'm one council member.
Right.
So I'm prepared to make that motion, but I want you to know for certain tonight that if that happens, if that passes and my colleagues agree to this extension, that I personally will not vote for any future extensions. If that deadline comes and you come back before us, I may get outvoted, but I will not vote for another extension.
Understandable.
All right? So
Sure.
I just want you to know that so that if that happens, you can't say that I didn't tell you so.
Councilman Schlissler.
I have a real problem with the entire concept. We have many lien reductions several lien reductions that have come before this board and are going to come in the future. And to me, it sets a very dangerous precedent that the next person can't do it, I have problems, and so forth. The lien reduction itself was very generous. And, we all do understand people have problems, things happen. The length of time that the original infractions went on, I think, is an important factor in the whole process. I'm not in favor of doing it. However, if it's the will of this council to do so, I understand. I just caution everybody that it's a dangerous precedent, and we're establishing this going forward. But I don't want to sound cold-hearted either. I do recognize that people have financial issues that do come up, and your particular case with your business, these things happen, and I recognize that. I'm torn. I know it's not a tremendous amount of money for the city, but it is an effort that the city has tried to help you and to work with you. I go along with a short extension. I'm not going for a significant extension, but miss it and it would revert back to everything. I just don't know. It's just a bad deal, and it sets a bad precedent.
I understand, sir.
Questions, Councilman Donahue?
I agree with you. However, this is a fellow citizen who's lived here for 50 years. This is not somebody who is new to the community or hasn't proven himself otherwise. You are living in this house, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I would have preferred the payment, but I think you're right, Mr. Ross. The payment sets up a whole other set of problems. So I will second your motion.
There's
Oh,
no
I
motion
thought you
yet. We have
had.
not
I'm
had-
sorry. Then
we
I
have not had
will.
public comment yet. This is just for
Okay,
questions.
all
Thank
right.
you.
So then my question to you then is exactly what Mr. Ross said. You need to figure out a way to set up an escrow account or something, because otherwise you really will be in danger of losing this home, and that's not where you want to go. Sounds like you're trying hard to make amends. So I will support this when and if we have a motion made. But I join him in cautioning you that this has never come to us before. We give people 30 days, and somehow, some way, they find that money. And so make us all happy and figure it out before whatever deadline we give you, okay?
Thank you.
I would ask if there are members of the public that would like to address council on this item. Mr. Pogorelic.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. David Pogorelic, Temple Terrace Code Enforcement Board member. I just would like to not remind, but tell you all that at our last meeting, it was suggested to the respondent to show some good faith and make a payment or two, which he responded affirmatively to, but it's my understanding that that has not occurred. So I'd just like you to take that into consideration as well, that it was suggested that he make some good faith effort, and that hasn't happened. And I'm not here to tell you not to give him an extension. It's just that I would agree with what most of you have already said, that it should be a short extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pogorelic. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address council on this item? Seeing none, motion, excuse me.
If I might ask Mr. Hernandez a question or two. Would it be all right if I ask Mr. Hernandez a question or two?
Absolutely, Ms. Shoshone.
Sir, property records indicate that your mother is the owner of this property.
Yes, Natalie Anderson.
Is she aware of this lien on the property, and you're seeking a lien reduction, and you're being here tonight?
No, she does not. This is not her violation. This is my responsibility, and she's not aware, and she's recently retired. It's not her, she's not able to give me any kind of help. I've asked her for other help to do something else on the property, and she just does not have it. She has other properties that my sister and my brother live in as well, and it's just, you know, it's time for us to take care of her. I really don't want to put that responsibility on her. It's not, she's helped me enough.
Okay, well, I'm not asking because you might need her help, but I'm asking because if the property is foreclosed upon, it's her property.
Mm-hmm.
So have you not discussed this at all with her?
No, I have not, because it's not, she would urge me to sell and not deal with this anymore.
And where does she live?
Upstate New York.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevenson, did you have something to add? Okay, council, what is your wish? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, and hopefully we'll have some discussion so I can explain this a little bit further. I make a motion that we extend the deadline in the reduced lien amount to 5 p.m. on Monday, April the 1st, where it reverts back to the $34,000.
I'll second this motion.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yes. I've tracked this case from the start. I mean, I've been familiar with all these cases. We approved the reduction, right? This gentleman has no way to pay us $34,000. We will never see a penny of that $34,000. I guarantee it, unless we foreclose on the house, right? I don't know whether he'll pay us the $1,900, but if we're going to see any of this money at all, we're going to have to extend this deadline. There is the issue of precedent. I would much rather extend the deadline than to enter into a payment plan, because the payment plan, in my opinion, is a really bad precedent. Because we get people that the reduced amounts are still $20,000. Those people, everybody's going to then want a payment plan. And city staff has got to sit there and manage this payment plan and keep track of how many payments he's made, and if he's late, if he's on time. What if the check bounces and he comes in 3 days later with that's a nightmare. This thing will be prolonged forever. So I'm not a fan of the payment plan. I'm not thrilled about giving him this much time. I get it. I kind of got to hold my nose and vote for my own motion here. But if there's any chance at all that this is going to go away, he's got to have some time. And I'm not willing to give him 6 months, but he's got to have some more time. How do we win if he pays us nothing? How is that a victory?
Councilman Schisler.
Those are all good points, but I do have a question for the city attorney, if I can. At this
Yes,
point.
absolutely.
I find it difficult to understand why all of this has been going on with a vacuum, or the owner in an actual absolute vacuum, not knowing anything about it. I would think that and again, I'm not blaming anybody. I just was very surprised to hear that she knew nothing. She knows nothing of the whole situation.
While we were sitting here, I looked up on the property appraiser's records to see what address is listed for Natalie Anderson, and it's the local address, the address of the property. And that's the problem. We are only obligated to send notices out to what is in the property records, and if the owner doesn't bother to update their address, they're not going to get the mail. Apparently, the mail is going to the house, and Mr. Hernandez is not informing the owner of the property.
Other discussion. Councilman Shalera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My position, I will not support the motion. I certainly understand the sentiment of this council. I think it's a very dangerous precedent. As our city continues to age, more and more of our homes are becoming rentals in Temple Terrace. I certainly understand appreciate Mr. Hernandez being here this evening. I looked it up. His property taxes are even current. It should have never got this far. Somebody was signing off on the certified letters that were coming out with the violation. If they're not adequate, they're not acceptable, the city attorney or the city clerk's office will notify, hey, this letter came back, somebody signed for it. Because I sat on the code board for 5 years. If that letter is not signed, it doesn't even move forward because the owner is not notified. Now, this property is not homesteaded, so it can be foreclosed on. It's not protected. So we could get our money back. The goal is, and always has been, is not to ding the property owners, to bring the property in compliance. And it's in compliance, and I agree. But the problem I have is if we allow this to happen with this particular case, I can assure you that there are going to be many cases coming back before you say, you did it then, why can't you do it now? The most consideration that I would, I think, Mr. Ross did a very, very good job trying to give you a good opportunity. I would suggest, there's a motion on the table, but the only motion I could support, if you can't pay it all now, is it be paid within 60 days, half in 30, the other half in the following 30. If you can't do that, then the property's going to get lien with the risk of being foreclosed. And I can assure you, nobody's going to lose a $150,000 home for $1,900. The property taxes are being paid, and those are $2,500 plus. I just looked them up, and they're current for 2018. So we do not have staff to start tracking payments coming in out on code enforcement fines on a monthly basis. We don't do that. You were reduced from $34,000 to $1,900. That's pretty significant. And, Code Board did a great job with that. But now to come back and say, I need more, I get it. Everybody has hardships. But we have to draw the line here, because this, while you're looking for your comfort level, it's going to create absolute chaos for us. We do have a safety net, which I don't like to lean on and say we can foreclose on the property. It's not our intent. We don't want your house. We just want the lien taken care of. It was a very generous reduction. I would be able to support, I think it was $962.50 for 30 days, and then the balance of the $962.50 the following 30 days. That would be a total of 60 days, and that would show good faith effort, and that's making a compromise, which I'm not even comfortable with. But since you have been here, a resident of this home, I get it. You're taking care of the home, whatever the condition your mom is. I understand, and you're here tonight. So there is a motion on the table. So obviously that has to be addressed and discussed. I can't support the motion the way it sits, but I would be willing to consider a 60-day with a payment in 30 days and the balance paid in the following 30 days, no more than that. Thank you.
Councilman Ross.
I can live with that. I'll amend the motion to half of the reduced amount is due within 30 days of tonight, and the full amount is due within 60 days of tonight. If you miss the 30-day payment, it reverts back to the original amount. And if you miss the second payment, it reverts back to the original amount.
We have an amended motion on the table. Another comment?
I just a question for Mr. Ross.
Sure.
When you say reverts back to the original.
$34,000.
$375.
Yes.
So we have an amended motion. Do we have a second?
I can second that.
We have an amended motion and a second from Councilman Donahue. Further discussion, council? I'd ask for all in favor to signify with aye.
Aye.
Oppose the nay sign?
No.
We have, motion does carry with one nay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, the second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1466, number 18-03 is now open. City Planner Mary Ann Abrahamson will give a brief review.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm here to present TXT 1803, which is a correction to a previously adopted ordinance. This is the second public hearing and reading. So as I explained during my last presentation, the first public hearing and reading on this item back in December, this ordinance 1414 was for a voluntary annexation of 8 parcels in the industrial area. There was an error in each of those the folio numbers. As you can see there, the 3s on the 4th letter N was supposed to be a 2. So this proposed ordinance 1466 will correct that in all instances in which it occurred. Staff recommends that council approve ordinance 1466 for TXT 1803.
Are there members of the public wishing to address council on this item? Public hearing is now closed. Council, any questions? Would ask the city clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
Ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, correcting the error in folio numbers in Ordinance 1414 that addressed the voluntary annexation of 8 parcels of certain real property located within the US 301 Industrial Park, adopted by City Council on April 4, 2017, providing severability and effective date and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 1466. We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Next, the first public hearing and first reading of ordinance approving CPA number 18-04, Ajax Paving Company. Hearing is now open. Jay Collins, Senior Planner of Hillsborough County City County Planning Commission, will present. And congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Council. Jay Collins with the Planning Commission staff. Again, staff is here tonight to provide you with information pertaining to your plan amendment for future land use map amendment 18-04. This is located at 7860 Professional Place. If the PowerPoint will come up. So where are we today? Well, let's go ahead and continue with what Mary Ann was talking about with the US 301 Industrial Park. Basically, we are in the southeastern area of your city. Basically, you've got 301 just to the west and Harney Road just to the north there. So if we actually drill down into an aerial on the site, you'll be able to see basically what is indicative of an industrial park. You can see the large plate development, basically the large single-story buildings that you have there that are spread throughout there. The plan amendment site is outlined in purple around that. The blue that you see there is actually your city limit. This is an annexation for your city. So just a little bit about the background of what we're talking about here. This is privately initiated. As I mentioned, it is an annexation. It is a small-scale amendment, so the action that is taken tonight by this council is binding. It is just over 4 acres. Currently in unincorporated Hillsborough County, it is community mixed use 12, and the applicant has asked for industrial within the city of Temple Terrace. So let's just take a little drive around, walk around, and see some of the sites that are here. You can see indicative of what we have here, the one-story buildings that you see in the back there. So what do we have there? There's a lot of metal fabrication that's going on there. You do have some warehouse and distribution that is going there. Some basic common industrial uses that you'll see in this industrial park. Specifically where we are here, as you can see, is the intersection of Professional and Maceland. Again, looking north from Professional Place, I'm basically standing on the intersection of where the site is. And this blurry picture is an older picture that's taken from Google because the picture that I had was even blurrier than that one. But that's basically looking into the site itself. So the future land use map for the area that you have today, the purple that you see that is basically all around the gray there, that is community mixed use 12. You've got community mixed use 12 in the city of Temple Terrace. You also have it in unincorporated county. The categories basically mirror each other with their intensities and densities. The industrial you see there is in the middle of that slide, and that is in the city of Temple Terrace. You can also see some residential land uses further to the west. Basically, this shows you the industrial land use that the applicant is asking for tonight. Coincidentally, if we continue further to the east, there's actually an annexation that's coming in as well right now asking for the same thing. So this has been a continuous progression that has happened in this US 301 industrial park. There have been a number of amendments over the years. So some of the density and intensities that could occur here today in the unincorporated Hillsborough County, community mixed use 12 does afford some residential densities. Your industrial land use category does not, so that would actually be a loss, the applicant, but what the applicant does pick up is some industrial consideration. Basically, the FAR, the floor area ratio in Temple Terrace is 0.65, it's 0.5 in the county, so it's advantageous for this annexation for the applicant. So some consistency issues here. We do have that this is an industrial neighborhood. Basically, your comprehensive plan calls out industrial neighborhoods and to support those industrial neighborhoods through policy, much in the same fashion as you would support a residential neighborhood or a commercial neighborhood. Economic development areas, this again is looking at the US 301 corridor in this industrial neighborhood as an economic development area to supply employment now and in the future for your residents. And then annexations always those that are orderly and contiguous to the city, which this is. So with that, there was a recommendation made by the Planning Commission at the December 10th meeting. They found it consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. And the recommendation for this board tonight, after receiving public input, is to approve an ordinance for Temple Terrace CPA 1804, consistent with the goals, objectives, and the policies of the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. Thank you for your time, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you for that very comprehensive report. Jay, I would ask, are there members of the public wishing to comment on this item?
Madam Mayor, City Council, I'd like to thank the staff for the recommendation and the Richard Reese, WGI. We're here. The application team and the applicant are here to address any questions you may have about the comp plan amendment.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment on this item? Council, questions? Councilman Ross.
I do have a question for Mr. Collins or Mary Ann. I'm not sure who can answer it best. Are these roads, as we continue to annex individual properties in that industrial area, are these roads county roads? And if so, at what point do we get to the point where we've got more properties in there than the county, and do we have to take over those roads? How does that work?
So Maceland Drive and Professional Place are roads that are under the jurisdiction of Hillsborough County. Obviously, you know that US 301 is FDOT. Now, specifically for taking over control of those roads, I don't know the exact, do you know how the city would actually take control, petition, I guess, the county?
Well, funny enough, I received an email from the city engineer today regarding this, and maybe Troy Tinch can speak a little bit more eloquently than I can on this. But the city engineer proposed that once one roadway has front, or I should say the city limits front a roadway completely, so there are properties on either side of the road entirely that are within the city. If it's a county road, then we would take that over, because then that roadway would be completely within the jurisdiction of Temple Terrace. If I misspoke, you can correct me on that, but that was my understanding of.
Thank you, Mr.
As far as
Tinch.
how we petition to go about that, that would come from the city engineer, that petition to the county, and an agreement, of course, with the county on how to move forward.
Does that extend, I don't know if you know this, but I mean, does that extend to the stormwater systems and all of that stuff? Because once we take this over, now we have to maintain all of that, so.
Right. Yes, Troy can speak more eloquently on the utilities and stormwater.
As long as
Well, I guess you got to let us know when we get to the last parcel, and so we don't annex anymore.
Well, sooner or later, they're going to make mention of that. And typically what has happened is just what Mary Ann just explained, is when we have substantial control over both sides of the road, the county has done that to us on portions of Temple Terrace Highway, for instance. We actually have a small portion of Temple Terrace Highway that is in the city limits.
Mr. Tinch.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Troy Tinch, City of Temple Terrace Public Works. To answer your question, Councilman Ross, yes, it would include all drainage appurtenances associated with the roadway. So if there were drainage infrastructure from drainage ditches all the way up to drainage pipes, all the infrastructure would then become the City of Temple Terrace for us to maintain. And I suspect that the county will probably approach us sooner than later on situations like this. Generally, if you break the 50% barrier, 60% of the properties that front the roadway, they would approach us about taking the roadway over.
Thank you.
Councilman Schisler.
Yes, I'm in favor overall of annexation. I always have been. But going back to a comment by Councilman Chalora at our last meeting, we're little piece here, little piece there, and we need to know, we come back to the fact that we need to know what the overall comprehensive plan is by the city. I remember a discussion 3 years ago that I hate to put the fire chief on the spot, but I think we're getting to the threshold of having to force the third fire station in order to maintain our Class 1 rating. I might be over-exaggerating it, but I mean, we're going to hit a point where we reach that balance. I'm not against it. I'm in favor of it. But we need to know, where's that tipping point? How close are we so that we can make the changes that we need to do to make sure that all of our services stay at the level that we expect them to be and the citizens expect them to be. So I just want to reiterate that request from Councilman Chalora last meeting, that we concurrently with this, we need to know where we stand, how we're getting there, what's going to happen, what's going to be the tripping point to this next roads, sewers, what's going to be required to keep us at the status quo that we are now. That's all.
Any other questions?
If I may add, part of our review process, we go through the DRC, we inform, develop the level of service, fire department, police department, we ask for their input. So if we feel that we are compromising our level of the service, we would not recommend for an annexation. So we are in consultation with everybody on board, Park and Rec, Police Department, Fire Department, making sure that we have adequate potential there in order to annex a property.
Thank you, Mr. Anisi. Councilman Donahue.
Thank you. I just want to make one comment about the fear of annexation. In this case, the petitioner has asked us to come into our city, and I realize that this is just the first step, which is annexing. But if you look into your packet to see what their anticipation is to bring to us, I can't wait for them to be part of the city of Temple Terrace. I mean, this is a step up from what we have, and will definitely encourage others to step up their game, I would think, in that industrial park as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring to us as citizens of our city.
The public hearing is now closed. If the clerk would please read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan, future land use map for one parcel of land located at the southwest corner of Maslin Drive and Professional Place with an addressable location of 7860 Professional Place, consistent of approximately 4.13 plus minus acres, by changing the future land use designation on said property from Community Mixed Use 12, CMU 12, Hillsborough County, to Industrial Temple Terrace for CPA 18-04, providing for amendment of the official future land use map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
If acceptable, would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading. If approved, the ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on February 5th, 2019. Is there a motion?
I move to approve CPA number 1804.
We have a motion, and we have a second. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, I just, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I hope the petitioner didn't take anything I said to mean that I wasn't in favor of this. I just had a question about at what point are we going to be responsible for the infrastructure. So it wasn't that I had any doubts about you coming into the city. Welcome and thank you.
We are very excited to have you here, and thank you, staff, as you've worked on this. We have a motion. We have a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, item 6C, a first public hearing and first reading of an ordinance approving zoning reclassification RZP number 18-05 for the property located at 7860 Professional Place. The hearing is now open. If the city clerk would please swear in all persons who will be testifying on this matter.
Stand and raise your right hand. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
And if City Council would please make disclosures of any oral or written ex parte communications with the applicant or citizens regarding this matter.
I've had none.
I have had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
Thank you very much. City Planner Marianne Abrahamson will present.
Good evening again. Marian Abrahamson, Community Development, here to present RZP 1805 for 7860 Professional Place. This is the first public hearing and reading. The owner is MAH Tampa Investments, and the applicant is here with us this evening, WGI. So again, this is located at 7860 Professional Place in the US 301 industrial area. The applicant is requesting to rezone from manufacturing in the county to light industrial in the city due to a recent annexation. The property is approximately 4.13 acres. So the applicants submitted this concept plan that you see before you. They're proposing a new one-story office building, 9,700 square feet. They will be making some improvements to the existing site, a new access drive off of Maslin, the perimeter sidewalk along their property, and the existing building will remain. These are the proposed external elevations, some of them for the proposed office space. And here are some internal renderings of their office space and their conference room. The Planning Commission has found this request consistent with our comprehensive plan, and staff recommends council approve an ordinance to adopt zoning reclassification RZP 1805.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Would the applicant like to address council?
Madam Mayor, City Council, I'd like to thank staff again on the recommendation. We're here to address any questions you may have about the rezoning application.
Council, are there any questions? Councilman Schisler.
I have one comment, and it kind of dovetails with the previous discussion. Welcome. I don't know how you could I hope you didn't misinterpret my comments, because I'm all in favor of annexation, all in favor of bringing new business into the area and, into our city, and we will welcome you open arms.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Are there members of the public that would like to address council on this item? Seeing none, this public hearing is now closed. Would ask the city clerk to please read title or ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, rezoning 4.13 plus-minus acres of land located on the southwest corner of Maslin Drive and Professional Place, with an address of 7860 Professional Place, from zoning classification manufacturing in Hillsborough County to light industrial in Temple Terrace for RZP 18-05, providing for amendment to the official zoning map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
If acceptable, would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading. If approved, the ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on February 5th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilman Shalur. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Schisler. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Next, item 6D, first public hearing and first reading of an ordinance approving zoning reclassification application RZP number 18-06 for the property located at 8745 Overlook Drive. The hearing is now open. If the city clerk would please swear in all persons who will be testifying.
Yes.
City council members, please make disclosure of any oral or written ex parte communications with the applicant and/or citizens regarding this matter.
I did have a conversation with neighbors in the area about this application.
I spoke to Mr. Chacho about it in general terms and asked him to talk to staff and, if that was his intent, to get the process rolling.
Very good. I've had no communication.
I've had none.
I've had no communication.
I've had none.
City Planner Mary Ann Abrahamson will present.
Good evening again. I am here to present RZP 1806 for 8745 Overlook Drive. This is the first public hearing and reading. The owner and applicant is here this evening. This is the location just south of Bush Boulevard and east of Overlook Drive. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from single-family residential R10 to planned development with commercial uses and office uses. This site is located in our community redevelopment area, and therefore any site in that area must come in for a PD zoning classification with a request to rezone. They would not be able to rezone to CG or CO because of the location, so it has to be zoned to PD with the conditions that a CG use or a CO use, a commercial general or commercial office use, would be allowed. The site is approximately 0.31 acres. Again, the condition of approval for this PD would be that any commercial office and commercial general zoning uses are allowed. There's an existing single-family home on site that is rented, and the applicant has stated that the home, he intends to continue to rent out the home until potential future redevelopment of the site, which would be allowed in a commercial office zoning regulation, or a zoning designation, excuse me. The Planning Commission has reviewed this request and found it consistent with our comprehensive plan, and staff recommends that council approve this ordinance to adopt zoning reclassification RZP 1806.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Would the applicant like to address council on this item? Council, questions? Councilman Donahue.
Do we know what the use of this property will be?
Well, there's no redevelopment being proposed currently. However, any future redevelopment will have to come back in the form of a site plan for review and review through our Development Review Committee. So any commercial general uses, excluding car rental agencies, or commercial office uses would be allowed.
All right. Are there any other questions? Is there anyone from the public that would like to address council on this item? The public hearing is now closed. If the city clerk would read title of ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, rezoning 0.31 plus minus acres of land located south of Bush Boulevard and east of Overlook Drive with an address of 8745 Overlook Drive from zoning classification single-family residential 10 in Temple Terrace to planned development PD in Temple Terrace for RZP 18-06, providing for amendment to the official zoning map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
If acceptable, would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading. If approved, the ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on February 5th, 2019. Is there a motion?
I move to approve RPZ 1806 for property located at 8745 Overlook Drive.
We have a motion from
Second.
Councilman Ross. We have a second from Councilman Schisler. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Item 6E, a resolution approving a modification to the 2017-2018 CDBG agreement with Hillsborough County. Finance Director Lynn Boswell will explain. Ms. Boswell.
Madam Mayor, Council, last November 2017, we accepted a grant from Hillsborough County CDBG in the amount of $244,119. In January of 2018, we went ahead and amended that particular grant to provide $100,000 to the Boys and Girls Club to be used from that CDBG. After talking further with the county, we found that what we wanted to use it for the B&G would not be permissible under the CDBG, so they found an alternate means of funding the Boys and Girls Club. As a result, we went ahead and canceled the modification to split the CDBG. And now this resolution comes before you to restore back the original CDBG grant of $244,119. The approving the resolution will allow our Public Utilities Department to finish the remainder of the project that was started in the area depicted in the map attached to the agenda.
Thank you, Lynn. I would ask if there are members of the public wishing to comment on this item. Council, are there questions? Councilman Schisler.
Yeah, Lynn, what was the, you said we, County Commission found additional funds?
Yes, yes, Hillsborough County
Okay,
did.
and where did they find it? What did they?
There was some additional money held for the City of Temple Terrace that we have never really claimed to use because we didn't have a use for it. And with an agreement, we have another agreement that came before the City Council. I don't see the chief here. And they're going to be funding it with that alternative amount of money that they had stored for the City of Temple Terrace.
Did they have any other black holes?
We're looking, we're still looking.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you,
take
Ms.
advantage of that.
Thank you, Ms. Boswell. If acceptable, would entertain a motion approving modifications to the 2017-2018 CDBG agreement with Hillsborough County. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just have one comment, one quick comment, in case any of the county commissioners are watching. I would, the county has been, the sheriff's office, the county commission, others, the county administrator have all been extremely generous and good partners in this Boys and Girls Club project. Here, once again, they have helped us out. And I would just like to publicly thank the county for all their cooperation and skin in the game for this. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, a resolution approving the purchase of a Ford F-450 utility vehicle and sewer camera system. Troy Tinch, Public Works Director of Utilities, will explain.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. Troy Tinch, Public Works Utilities Director. I'm here this evening to seek approval for the purchase of a new camera truck to replace an existing 19-year-old vehicle. I did want to note that this vehicle was planned in the CIP vehicle replacement program, so it's something that we've had planned actually for a number of years. The age of the vehicle, again, at 19 years, puts it well outside of its service life. The vehicle itself would be utilized in conjunction with the Vector truck, which is somewhat recently purchased, rather large purchase at that. It would work in conjunction with that vehicle for going out and inspecting our sewer lines. You would clean the line, then you would bring in the TV truck with the camera, and you would actually put the camera into the sewer line pipe, and you would extend the camera down the pipe and then view it to see if there were cracks, if there were leaks. This would also help us identify any inflow and infiltration. I believe I spoke about that in one of our previous presentations. Basically, groundwater that seeps into the pipe. That water is then sent down the way to the city of Tampa for treatment. So there's a cost savings here by identifying these issues, as well as identifying any other problems with the pipe. In addition, having that vehicle ready and available 24/7 for emergency purposes. Say we were having an issue with our stormwater pipe, a potential hole opened up, sewer pipe. If a hole were to open up or a void, much of that pipe is 15 to 18 feet in depth. So to exploratorily dig to find out what's going on, that would be a bit of an issue. So having the camera truck, having that availability to be able to put the camera again in the pipe, send it down the way, find out exactly where the leak is, because leaks do migrate. So you could have an issue where the leak is actually 20 to 30, even 50 feet away from the migration point where it comes out of the ground. We could pinpoint that, dig down if we needed to replace that section of pipe, or identify it for lining. So this is a very useful tool for us to have in our toolbox. It's extremely needed. As a matter of fact, I don't know that there are any municipalities in this area that don't have at least one in their inventory, if not two in many cases. So that said, staff recommends City Council approve the purchase of a 2019 Ford E450 camera truck in the amount of $209,970.01. This utility maintenance vehicle we purchased from Environmental Products of Florida, located in Apopka, Florida, utilizing the Tallahassee Purchasing Contract number 3708. Payment is to be provided through the Sewer Utility Fund under account 410-1931-533.64-12. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tinch. And prior to any questions from council, I would ask, are there any members of the public wishing to address council on this item? Seeing none, I'll open it up to questions from council. Councilman Ross.
I know we're replacing old equipment, but are we also gaining functionality with this new, is this able to penetrate the pipes deeper or look at this in higher resolution, or are we gaining any functionality here?
Absolutely, Councilman Ross, and that's a very good point to make. The older vehicle, obviously, coming up on 20 years old, the technology 20 years ago, the software, all that is all going to be brought up to date. The resolution of the camera, much, much greater, as well as the size of the camera has gotten much smaller. So it allows us to explore smaller pipes and get better resolution on those photos to really pinpoint exactly what the issue is. And I've viewed many a video from these camera trucks, and it's amazing the clarity at which you can see minute cracks in our piping system and see that little leakage. So absolutely, this is a definite step up for us.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Discussion? If acceptable, would entertain a motion approving the purchase of a Ford, I have F450, is it an E450?
It's an E450. My
Approving the
apologies.
purchase of a Ford E450 utility and sewer camera system. Is there a motion?
I'll move staff recommendation, Madam Mayor.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, a resolution approving the interlocal agreement with the county for state EMS grant. Fire Chief Ian Kemp will explain.
Honorable Mayor, Mayor, Council, Ian Kemp, your Fire Chief. Each year, the county, through state grants, offers EMS grants to enhance those fire departments within the state that run EMS. This year, that amount for the city of Temple Terrace is $6,584. We have identified some pediatric equipment that right now when we have pediatric events, we have a sheet and we go by weight and also the length of the child, of the baby. This is going to allow us to actually have an app on our phone that identifies exact drugs that we carry, not what the state carries. And the medical director is really excited about this new equipment. So this is not a matching grant. This is a 100% funded grant. So other than the $12.81 that we're taking out of our one of our funds, we're excited about getting this grant. So if it's approved by you, we'd recommend you approve this grant.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this item? Council, are there any questions?
No. This is great for our citizens.
Oh, yeah.
If acceptable, would entertain a motion approving the interlocal agreement with the county for a state EMS grant. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and
Chief.
Council.
A resolution approving the supplement and second amendment of the Declaration of Covenants and Reciprocal Easement Operating Agreement. City Attorney Pam Shoshone will explain.
Thank you, Mayor. This addresses a rather lengthy document that was signed by both Vlas Temple Terrace and the City of Temple Terrace back in June of 2010. At that time, it was contemplated that Vlas would be developing the entire redevelopment site, and it had quite a few development requirements written into it as to what would be built there, how it would be built, that there would be an association established of the different tenants or maybe eventual owners, and it addressed easements for parking, all of which are not relevant as to how it's being sold and developed now by the city. So it caused great concern initially with Paragon's title company and then Richmond's title company. So both of them have participated with coming up with this amendment to this, we call it the REA or the REOA for short, coming up with an amendment to this. And we've worked for several months on this, and finally everybody's reached an agreement, and it was part of the agreement that we had with Paragon that this amendment would be brought. They went ahead with the closing regardless, but at the time it was part of the agreement that we would bring this back to this body for consideration before the 18th of January. So it being before the 18th of January, it is for you to consider. It does not eliminate the original agreement, but it makes some changes to it, things that will make these developers much more comfortable. They feel more firm in their understanding of what their rights and their responsibilities are. If you noticed from the attachment, there was a large section that was substituted in that had to do with maintenance so that everybody knows what they're supposed to take care of, and hopefully that there isn't any question. Kite Realty, being one of the owners out there along with the city at this time and Paragon, they were given the opportunity to comment on it. I had long discussion with their representatives on the phone. Changes were made. They seem to be in agreement with this. They don't say much about it, but they're not saying no. So that's all I can represent as far as Kite. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those. But the amendments to this document are getting rid of a lot of obsolete terms and conditions, restrictions that I think will help move all of this development forward. And so I'm recommending today that this be approved.
Thank you. And prior to council questions, I'd ask, are there any members of the public who would like to address council on this item? Seeing none, council questions. Councilman Schisler.
Yeah, Ms. Shoshone, adopting this tonight, will this pull, or will this cover the rest of parcel A, all of parcel B, and any issues of parcel C in the future? In this purview, for this topic?
For right now, yes.
For this topic?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that, right now, we are in the position, because we are considered the master developer now, and we are also the owner of the majority of the property. Under the original terms of the agreement, the majority property owner has the right and authority to make these amendments. Once we are no longer the owner of the majority of the property, it is going to be less possible for us to make this amendment without all of the rest joining in. We had the rest, the ones that will, we had the rest join in at this point. Paragon insisted upon signing. Richmond wanted them to sign as well. Richmond not being an owner yet, it was not really appropriate for them to sign. However, they did participate fully in drafting this agreement. This does not mean that one or more owners, new owners, are not going to come up with new items and new things that disturb them or concern them or that they want, and we may have to come back again with a few other minor changes. But we are hoping between us, Richmond, and Paragon, we are hoping that what we've created now will address most of everybody's issues. But as you'll see, even in this agreement, it sort of designates the different parcels that what Richmond's parcel is known as now the multifamily, will be known as the multifamily parcel. This is things they wanted in there, so.
Well, I guess my point is that this should hopefully eliminate this stumbling block going forward.
Correct.
Maybe others, but this one will be
Yes.
taken off the table.
Yes,
Hopefully.
just by getting it started with Paragon, Richmond was very happy to hear that we were already preparing to make the amendments, and that's why we figured we may as well include them in rather than make amendments without them. And now that we've had attorneys from three different attorneys from different groups participating in this, I'm hoping that the three of us have come up with a document that's going to satisfy everybody else after this.
Any other questions from council? Councilman Shalera.
Thank you. Mr. Shoshone, just quickly, does approving this resolution, this amendment, does it create any additional burden to the city, financial burden above and beyond what we currently have?
I think that maybe the city manager might be able to speak to that. I don't believe so, but.
Mr. Chalura, no, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If acceptable, would entertain a motion approving the supplement and second amendment to the Declaration of Covenants and Reciprocal Easement Operating Agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Next, a resolution approving the third amendment to the purchase and sale agreement with the Richmond Group. City Attorney Shoshone will explain.
There had already been two amendments to the purchase and sale agreement with the Richmond Group. The last one did give them an extension on the inspection period. This one really was, and it extended it until this Friday. So that's why we're back here again today, because we, both Richmond and the city felt that we needed to put third amendment into place before the last one expired. This one really was because they had some issues concerning parking and the use of the park. I believe that all of you have been briefed on this, and they wanted that firmed up in writing in a document. And really, that's all that this document does. I wanted to make it clear to everybody, this does not extend the closing date. So all this does is just keep everything moving and avoid any expiration of the previous document that would happen on this Friday. So.
Thank you. Are there members of the public wishing to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll open it to questions from council. Councilman Schisler.
What is the anticipated closing, or have you come to that?
The anticipated closing is July 18th, 2019. I think we had two people counting days off the calendar today, and it's around the 18th to 20th. So, and that's what it's been since we had executed the second amendment to the agreement. And the second amendment to the agreement, a primary purpose of that one, is to give us time to for you all to consider the REA that you just did. So that's taken care of, and we've fulfilled our obligation under the second one. So.
Councilman Shalera.
Thank you. And Mr. Schoen, can you please refresh our memory? It says that the inspection period is extended to January 18th, 2019. At that time, does additional monies go hard, come to the city? Can you give me a rundown on that, please?
I don't have in my notes about, I've got my notes about the dates. I don't have anything in my notes about the payment of the funds.
We did have, I didn't mean to trip you up, but
Yeah.
we did have, I think, part of the agreement was that once the inspection period's over, that they deposit additional monies. Mr. Stevenson, is that correct?
That is correct, and that date remains, I don't know what that date is, and I don't know what the amount is right offhand. I don't want to misquote, but that original agreement and that condition of the original agreement will stay in place. This is just rearranging some of the infrastructure, if you will, that they've requested that we do in order to move their site plan forward, so.
Well, I'm just looking here.
Their requirement to go hard with money does not change with this agreement.
I understand. I'm looking at paragraph 5. It says, however, this does not serve to extend the inspection period beyond January 18. I thought at the end of the inspection period, they were putting money up or additional money or.
I do believe that's part of, and that's the condition of the original agreement. Yeah.
Okay.
So-
If you could just let us know, maybe in the Friday report or something.
We will
I just
do
saw
that.
that it wasn't.
We'll follow up with it. Rather than give you some guessed at numbers, I'll get you some solid
Thank you,
numbers.
sir.
Any other questions? If acceptable, would entertain a motion approving the Third Amendment to the purchase and sale agreement with Temple Terrace Apartments, LLC, the Richmond Group. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution approving the Third Amendment to the purchase and sale agreement with Temple Terrace Apartments, LLC, the Richmond Group.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Is there any carryover business from our previous meeting, council? Seeing none, we'll move to new business. Councilman Shalera.
Go.
Oh,
Okay, I know, and we just got here, so normally Mr. Stevenson calls us to discuss information the day of a meeting, but sitting here and watching the folks from one of the neighborhoods here in Temple Terrace come back before us with concerns with this B&Bs throughout Temple Terrace, seems like of a problem and a concern. Years ago, I served on the council when multiple unrelated people were living in houses, and I think we had passed an ordinance where it could be up to 3 unrelated people can live in a house, so it's not a free-for-all. And this is just me talking, so obviously the council is going to have their own opinions, but can we not permit B&Bs in Temple Terrace and avoid this problem? I mean, we have hotels all around us, and it seems like these seem like very nice folks. They've long-term Temple Terrace, the core fabric of Temple Terrace, and they're coming here with extreme frustration. They've complimented staff. You guys are, going above and beyond. They get that, but is there a way, again, I'm speaking for myself, to say we don't permit B&Bs in Temple Terrace? It's a question that I'm just posing. I don't know if that's.
Go ahead.
My understanding of the law on that, in that area, is that at some point, the Florida legislature took that home rule, part of home rule, away from the municipalities. If you did not prohibit these what they call short-term rentals prior to a certain date, which is now fairly long past, you cannot do it. The state of Florida has said that short-term rentals are allowed and the municipality cannot say no. This is something that has to be addressed with the Florida legislature and the Florida League of Cities is well aware of this. There are a lot of cities that are not happy about this. So the short answer to your question is no, you can't do that now.
Okay, well, I understand that, but I'm reading this backup information that you guys have provided us this evening, and I'm looking at this different jurisdictions and what their guidelines are. And the city of Tampa says the city has no ordinance specifically regulating Airbnbs. Limit short-term rentals to 7 days in the residential districts. If rented less than 7 days, it is considered short-term rental and not allowed. So they're posing conditions. Can we pose, or if they're doing it, I'm just saying, I think the more conditions we can pose on this type of use, the better protected our long-term residents would be, and not make this, we have already a ton of rentals, and I don't know that we need to be continuing this throughout the common core of fabric of Temple Terrace.
If I may, one of the things was on my city manager's report was to provide that information on Airbnb to you. We've also got some more that I can give you here in the very near future. One of my recommendations was going to be to schedule a workshop so that council and we can talk about this. I think there are conditions that we can put on this. We can't prohibit the Airbnb short-term rental. I've dealt with this issue in a previous jurisdiction. It is very problematic. It was an ordinance that we passed in a previous city that I worked for. It was actually challenged in court. So it isn't one of those things that is clear, cut, and dry. I would suggest that we have a workshop here in the very near future. I know that our police department and our code enforcement department, with my request, has been kind of keeping an eye on what's happening at the house so that we at least know what is going on. We have been able to discover in some of the stuff that we've been doing with this particular house that the house was in fact homesteaded. It's illegal to do that and rent it out. The owner doesn't even live there. So we have approached the owner with some of the neighbor concerns and whatnot, and certainly I think he's been rather receptive. I think he's got himself signed up on our rental housing program. Again, whether or not Airbnb and the short-term rental, whatever definition we want to apply, I think that we can put some restrictions on it, but we certainly can't prohibit it, is my understanding.
Okay.
There is, in fact, something that's called property rights, where people can, in fact, do certain things with their property. It is problematic, and it's very contentious. I can certainly appreciate the neighborhood. I was able to meet with Mr. Smith and the group before they left to tell them that I was going to suggest a workshop so that we can kind of air some of this out in a workshop. I see some head nodding, so I really just need to kind of come up with a workshop date. And again, was hoping to do that at city manager's business, but since you brought it up, I'm open for a date.
Okay, let me know. I'll be there.
Thank you. Any other new, oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Schisler.
Yeah, I have two things. One is related to the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club and the Strategic Advisory Committee. With the election, I need to come off of it. I've tendered my resignation to that. I probably should have done before. But I want to, and I know that Ms. Mooney is going to advertise for the position, but there are two council appointments, and I think that we need to fill both of them, and assuming that Mr. Stats wants to stay on, we at least fill mine. But I think we need to recommend to the country club that we reestablish those meetings. It's been 8 months since we've had one, 7, 8 months. It was back in June or July, I believe, was the last one. So I'd like to recommend that we push that. Well, we need to keep tabs on what's going on as per the agreement that we have signed with the country club. The second topic was kind of spurred to me by Troy. The project that was done south of Bullard, the sewer realignments or whatever you want to call them, or the inserts that were put in, has there been any, first of all, is the project complete? I believe it is. And B, have we enjoyed any of the benefits of the intention of it in reduced sewage fees through the city of Tampa?
Councilman, that project is actually still underway. We have not begun the lining portion. We just completed the TV portion of that project. We had a issue with one of our main lines that ran under 56th Street, and we wanted to make sure we had all that information pulled together before we move forward with the lining, because there was some concern if there was an issue, significant issue with the sewer line that ran under 56th Street, it could indeed pull all the funds would be required to fix that one issue. What we ended up finding out is there's a little bit of a belly in the sewer line under 56th Street, and there's no disconnect or disjointed issue where you've got an offset in the pipe. It's actually just a low spot. So we're going to need to continue to maintain that. But now that we know this information, and when I say we just found out, it was last week. And now we'll move forward then with the lining of the remainder of the areas that we had identified. So we purposely held up on that lining effort until we found out this little bit of information regarding that particular, because it is kind of a rather large line. So as of right now, there's been no lining that's been completed. However, now that we have the final piece of the puzzle, we will move forward with lining.
Is there any other new business to come before council?
I'd like to go back to the Airbnb. Are you going to speak to us again about this tonight, or do you want to set up a workshop?
I think I've really probably given you about as much information as I can possibly can. And again, my suggestion is to schedule a date that we can meet and have this workshop.
They can't hear. They can't hear.
I'm going to suggest that we set up a date so that we can have a workshop to do this.
Do you want to do that tonight, or are you
Yes,
going to email us?
I would love to propose an hour before our next meeting, if that would work for everybody. I mean, I really do think that we need to kind of
February
jump on
5th?
this, because this is going to take some time to put together.
Mhm.
So,
Is February 5th agreeable to all the council members?
What time?
1 second, please.
5 o'clock?
You have a consensus, Mr. Stevenson, and with that, we will go to the city manager's report. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got really a whole bunch of stuff to go through with you, and if I can have you bear with me, we have a lot of catch-up that I need to do. At our December 18th meeting, I was not here. I did have the opportunity to watch the meeting on YouTube. At 3-minute discussion, there's a couple different things that I'd like to make sure that we're clear on the record about. Mention was made concerning the opening of the library on Sundays. There was a statement made that the administration took it upon itself to remove that allocation that was put into the budget. I don't know that that's a correct statement. I know that we discussed opening the library, but I do not recall any direction, specific direction given to staff or myself to open the library on Sunday. With that being said, if that's a wish as a council, I certainly will abide by that request. But to say that I took it out of the budget, that's not true. I would not take it upon myself to do that when council gives me direction. There was also some direction made that the sale of the redevelopment proceeds be applied to the two loans that we have, and I will remind council that up until even back in September when we were talking about refinancing those two loans with our two new banks, that I was making the recommendation that any proceeds go to start paying down some of this note. That has always been my intention. I have no other intention. Mention was made that I had the ability to buy scooters with that money. I can assure you I don't intend to buy scooters with that money. These are things that were just said. And again, I need to start bringing some of this out so that some of this information that isn't correct is cleared up on this record. There was mention made about an Airbnb on Park Ridge. And after discussion with Mr. Baroni, we have discovered there is a rental house that is on Park Ridge. We know of no Airbnb that is additionally on Park Ridge. If there's additional information, I would ask for that to be shared with us so that we can attack this. At the same time, we do have a rental house that is within our rental housing program. I know of no other rentals on that property or on that street. Excuse me. The Airbnb was certainly with Mr. Smith. We have been in contact with him. We've been doing some reconnaissance on the house to figure out what's going on. And I do think that we'll try to gather our information and share with you whatever else we can find. I know there was some more information delivered to me today. I do have a little bit of experience in the past with short-term rentals, and I can tell you that they're very challenging. And I moved here hoping that I wouldn't have to deal with it again. But it's here. So we'll come up with something. And again, I think certainly I expressed to the neighbors that we are very concerned to protect the integrity of our neighborhoods, and we will do our best to do that. Provided to council is something that we've been working on for about a year, that has come up again on occasion. There is a situation out there where we've got foreclosed homes that go vacant. We know that there are instances where these homes are being rented without the knowledge of the owner and without the knowledge of the bank that is foreclosing. They actually occupy this house. They come in, they give us a bogus lease. They establish a residency there, and there's very little that we can do about it. We have now drafted for your review an abandoned property ordinance that will help us in delineating certain criteria that we can use to maybe start knocking on doors and saying what gives you the authority to be here. That involves certain things as far as having the owner or the bank register the property with us so that we know where these are. There are provisions in the draft ordinance that requires them to post the property as no trespassing. If that in fact is there, we have the ability for our police department to knock on the door and start asking questions. Why are you here? It also requires that when these homes go into that situation, that the bank, at least the one that is doing a foreclosure, has a requirement to post with us and notify us of who's responsible to take care of the homes. It is a mechanism that I know that two other cities have used. We've kind of crafted this based on some history that we've looked into and have been able to establish something that I think is true and correct for us to move forward with. But what I'm asking council to do is to look at this draft ordinance, see if you see any monumental problems with it. It's been reviewed by our legal team and certainly our police department and our code department. But it will give us a tool, if you would, that we can maybe address this issue moving forward. I would like to, we set our sights on bringing this before council in February. If I can give everybody a little bit of time, we would love to kind of get something like this going and on the books. If you've got some issues with it, please contact me. I'm open for discussion. We try. Yes, ma'am. We certainly have tried to look at all the if, ands, and buts and what ifs. I think it's a decent document, but we just want to have your eyes on it before we start moving forward with presenting it in public hearing. Also, I've provided to you on December 18th, again, in my absence, Mr. Tinch was kind enough to attend the meeting downtown with the MPO that concerned the transportation surtax item. I don't know that there was a lot that came out of that. We provided you a summary of that meeting. Obviously, I think everyone is aware of all the moving parts with this surcharge, if you would. And as we find out more information, we will certainly share that with council. At this point in time, I don't know that I've got any definite information to provide you. I don't know that anybody has any. There's a bunch of moving parts with this thing, and hopefully it all gets filtered out, and we can all know what our rules are. We don't even know what the rules are yet. So I've given you a recap of that meeting. Again, if you've got some questions, I'll be more than happy to address those with you guys. At this point in time, it's been a while since we've given you a redevelopment update on where we're at with these three properties that are either under contract or fixing to go under contract. Richmond, obviously, I think has moved forward just another step with the amendments that you've approved this evening. I've asked Greg to kind of put together just a brief summary of where we're at with these three properties. And if I can give him just a few minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Madam Mayor, City Council, Greg Pauley, Business Relations Manager. I know it's late, so I'll keep this as brief and as quick as possible. I'm going to give you a quick summary review and status update for the three developers that we're currently working with. City staff continues to work with three developers, all at different stages in the process of launching their projects in the downtown community redevelopment area. First is Paragon. Paragon purchased the corner parcel, 2.5 acres, located immediately southeast of the intersection of 56 and Bush, for the purchase price of $3.5 million. That sale closed on November 19th. Paragon plans to build 5 freestanding structures on that parcel dedicated to mixed-use commercial space. The development agreement with Paragon provides that the project is developed in 2 phases. Phase 1 is designated as the portion of the parcel that is north of the 56th Street curb break. For those of you that can picture that area, there's a curb break, and if you draw a line directly to the east, it more or less cuts that parcel into 2 roughly equal halves. The northern half is Phase 1, the southern half is Phase 2. The Phase 1 site plan is due 90 days after the closing date, bringing the calendar to February 17th. Upon site plan approvals, Paragon will have 30 days to apply for necessary permits, and once all permits are approved, we'll have 60 days to commence vertical construction on Phase 1. The Phase 2 timeline is structured similarly, commencing 300 days after the closing date. That brings the calendar to September 15th for Phase 2. With a 30-day application approval period and a 90-day deadline to commence vertical construction. It's important to note that for the purposes of our development agreement with this developer, the Phase 1 and Phase 2 vertical construction timeline refers to shell-built buildings. Final construction for each structure is required to be completed within 18 months of the applicable permit approvals. Paragon has retained the services of Bowler Engineering. A pre-application meeting with Bowler Engineering of Tampa and city staff is scheduled for next week, January 23rd. Demolition of the old fast food restaurant that currently occupies the land is scheduled for the second calendar quarter of 2019, with ground preparation immediately to follow. City staff met with the developer in mid-December to discuss collaborative efforts to promote the project. The groundbreaking and various milestones utilizing the city's multiple communication platforms to include social media, online video, web post, as well as the city public access TV. The ceremonial groundbreaking for this project has been postponed due to unforeseen scheduling conflicts. As soon as a new date is set, more information will be made available. The next developer is the Richmond Group. Richmond is currently under contract to purchase 4.8 acres for $3 million. The parcel is located east of Main Street in the downtown redevelopment area just south of Bullard Parkway. Richmond plans to build an upscale multifamily community with 200 residential units. As previously noted by our city attorney, the inspection period for that will expire this coming Friday, January 18th. Following the expiration of the inspection period, Richmond will have 60 days to submit a development agreement and applications for approval. That brings the calendar to roughly March 19th. I'm that other person that was counting calendar days, as you might have figured out. The application approval window expires 90 days after the application deadline, and that brings us to the middle of June, roughly June 17th. This provides for a closing date for the middle of July. As a condition of the purchase and sale agreement with Richmond, Richmond will repurpose the park property in front of their project to a circular drive roundabout, enhancing the entrance and approach to the project area. Richmond will also relocate or rebuild prominent park features that currently exist along the entranceway to the area. They will also incorporate decorative pavers in the roundabout and crosswalks, which will be matched with the existing crosswalk pavers that currently are along Main Street. And the third developer that we're currently working with is Enigma Events. You may remember that Enigma proposed to purchase the 2-acre parcel south of Chicago Avenue, east of 56th Street for $1.5 million. The property has a pre-existing single-story masonry structure, formerly home to an automotive service center, a discount retailer, and a postal annex. Enigma plans to redevelop the existing building into subdivided commercial space with storefronts along all 4 sides. The space will be used for retail and hospitality. Enigma has retained Robertson & Associates of Lutz, Florida, to complete an updated survey of the property. The survey company is scheduled to complete the survey by the end of this week. In fact, it's my information that they're on property today and will be on property tomorrow. Excuse me. City staff is currently working with Enigma's legal counsel to finalize the purchase and sale agreement for this parcel. The developer is motivated and has expressed a desire to execute the agreement in early February. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from council?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess my only question is not about this property. It's about other properties in the CRA. Do we know anything about the property, the former Kmart property?
That property, excuse me, that property is actually under a property management company, and I have had a dialogue with the agent that is controlling that property. I did put in a call to her recently. I wanted to be able to give you an update there as well. Unfortunately, I have not received a call back from her. It's my understanding that the current owner, now that the tenant has vacated and has no other ties to the property, the current owner does wish to retain the property and is looking for alternatives to repurpose that commercial space.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councilman Schissel.
I have another question.
I've got some more items.
Thank you, Mr. Pauly, for your report.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Stevenson.
Thank you, Greg. Some time ago, council had requested their desire for staff to consider some revisions of the CRA design codes. I can tell you that we have initiated that work. We do have a draft that is now going around staff. We will be presenting some I think well-deserved revisions to our CRA to encourage people to come and build in our CRA district. It doesn't lax It doesn't eliminate some of the restrictions and some of the design criteria that we want, but it does lack some of the requirements as far as dictating what needs to be done. It allows us to have a little bit more leverage to approve things such as a drive-through. I mean, we do have a lot of people that want to do a drive-through, but with our restrictions, it drives them away. Fact of the matter is that nowadays, and not 15, 20 years ago, drive-throughs are a thing now. So those are kind of some of the things that we've looked at. I know that the planning department has the changes or the suggestions that I made to them, and they're working on telling me whether I'm crazy or not. So we'll be giving you some of those changes here coming forward. So I just want to let you know that that was brought up. We are working on it. We are trying to get a town hall meeting scheduled. I think we tried last week to do that. We were trying to set it up for March 7th, I believe. That's somewhat problematic for a couple of you that have indicated that that date doesn't work. I don't want to lose the notion that we keep putting back town hall meetings. I do think that it's good for us to do that. I would be amenable to some date if somebody wanted to make some kind of recommendation based on everyone's schedule. If you want some time and get to your calendars, you can certainly feed us some information. Certainly go through Jeannie, who would schedule that date for us. I know Thursdays, Councilman Ross has indicated he has got commitments on Thursdays for the next several weeks. And typically what we've done in the past is hold it on Thursdays. But if Wednesdays would work, we got to be cognizant that there's code meetings on Wednesdays.
How
So
about the other Tuesdays?
the other Tuesday, the second Tuesday, if that works for everybody, it works for me. I just need to, we need ample time to make sure that we advertise this properly and get it out there. So.
That would be the 12th.
Would March 12th work for everybody?
If we could follow what you suggested, Mr. Stevenson, and have a chance to go to our calendars.
Okay.
I don't have my business calendar.
Why don't we do that, and we can certainly, pick up this discussion or kind of solidify something by the next meeting. That'd be awesome. Okay.
Do you have a topic for that town hall meeting?
No?
Okay. Okay.
It's good to have, well, I mean, I don't know that we've established one. I don't know that, I don't know that we will not come up with some kind of agenda, but certainly it's one of those things that's opened up to the public. I mean, public, I think, is certainly willing to bring up whatever kind of an extended 3-minute version of our council meetings. So, but anyway, if we can do that and we can kind of get some feedback from everybody, I'll put Jeannie to task with that here this week. Okay. We've got some couple upcoming events. Touch a Truck is on February 9th for everybody, for everybody's calendar, and certainly Farm Night, February 22nd. Ms. McClellan will be here next meeting to give a lot of the details and certainly present her final arrangements to do Farm Night. But I do want to make sure that everybody understands that is coming up here in the next month. One of the things that I need council to start again looking at is a date for our goal-setting session. I would love to do this again in March. If we can have everybody look at their calendars again, I will task Jeannie to kind of get with everybody and come up with a date. Last year was rather problematic because we ended up into May before we actually had a date. I would love to do it 6 months into the year. I think that is a good time to do it. So if I can get everybody to look at their calendars for March, and I know we've got spring break, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, but again, I would love to have this thing, excuse me, I would love to have this thing conducted in March of this year. It would help us tremendously to pick up a couple months, so.
Okay.
If I can get Ms. Shushone, who has just looked up Richmond's contract, talking about the second deposit and going hard, she has got that information. up, thanks to the wonders of computers.
Councilman Shalura, you are absolutely correct. And 5 business days after the expiration of the inspection period, purchasers shall deliver the sum of $100,000 by check or wire transfer.
Good job, Frank. The watchdog.
They're good?
That's what I do.
Okay. Well, I just, rather than me get it, she pulled it up, so I figured this would be a good time to give everybody that information. I wanted to ask Mr. Adisi to come up to the podium. We've got a new planner that I would like him to introduce to council.
Madam Mayor, member of council, I would like to introduce our new addition, Ms. College. She's our new planner. She joined our team late December. We are very delighted. We are happy to have her on board. And if you would like to say a few words.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Oh, lower? Okay. That helps. My name is Andrea College, and I am the new planner. I've been here 3 weeks, and I'm really happy to be here. I love the city as being small, and being able to be involved in a lot of different things is my interest. My background, I worked for the city of Largo many years ago, and I always enjoyed working for a city, and I wanted to get back to that, so I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Andrea will be a good addition to us with, she brings a lot of experience, really on the code side of writing codes and reviewing codes. So we're looking forward to some great things from her. If I could bring anybody's attention, everybody got a calendar? And I'm going to embarrass a couple people. We have a couple calendar celebrities. If you look in June, when we were out on 56th Street, don't laugh, you're a calendar girl. MPO, this is a calendar out of MPO, and we involved ourselves with Vision Zero, and they happened to catch Mr. Anisi and Miss Abrahamson out on the street. So I didn't mean not on the street. Let me rephrase that. While they were holding signs in support of Vision Zero.
I don't know why she's blushing. My goodness.
I didn't mean to make her blush, but that really it just shows you our involvement with the MPO and our commitment to some of the events that don't get a lot of notoriety, but we do engage ourselves with the County Planning Commission and certainly the MPO as well. Last but not least, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank council for the time that they've granted me off here in the recent past. It's certainly appreciated. Special thanks to Mr. Albano, who picked up the reins at the last meeting. Done a great job of filling in for me. I certainly appreciate that. Also wanted to take the opportunity to thank my staff, who does an awesome job of keeping the doors open and keeping things running. You know that you've got a good staff when things continue to operate in your absence, and I'm real proud of them. You can tell you got a great staff when things keep going. So I certainly appreciate all that they do. They've been very supportive of my time off, and so has council, and I certainly appreciate that. To give you a reminder, I'm also gone the 16th, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week. I've appointed Mr. LeBlanc as the acting city manager, so if you've got any questions, certainly I can be gotten hold of. If you need me, please get me by phone or text. I will probably be in a situation where I won't be able to get email readily available. So with that said, I don't know that I have anything else. I probably talked too much already. So.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and I know there are a couple of comments. I'm going to boldly speak, not only for myself, but this entire council and your team. We love you, and I know this team and your staff are lifting prayers for both you and your mom, and Your attention is where it needs to be, and you've got our full support and the full support of the staff, and I believe the citizens at Temple Terrace. Thank you for your dedicated service to us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Ross, then Mr. Schisler, then Mr. Chalura.
Mr. Stevenson, I just had a quick question, and if you don't know the answer right off the top of your head, that's quite all right if you want to get back with me, because I don't remember either. We had discussions at the budget meetings last year about, we had a presentation from Mr. Langfeld about what it would cost to open the library on Sunday. There was some costs associated with that and how that would work. I honestly don't remember whether that money was passed in the final version of the budget or not.
It was not.
It was not. Okay.
It was not. I don't remember do you remember the number that you had worked up right offhand? Yeah.
Right, I do remember that also, yeah, but it was not, so we didn't put it in the budget. We talked about it, but we didn't do it.
Mr. Ross, I know that we talked about it. I don't know that we ever got any direction. I honestly don't remember any direction. We looked in the minutes of the meeting. It is not in the minutes. That doesn't mean that it wasn't.
Okay.
Certainly something that was documented, but.
Well, I'm just sitting here I'm just trying to remember whether we funded that or we just thought about it and didn't fund it.
It is not in the budget. It was not funded,
Okay.
according to my recollection.
That's the answer. Thank you.
Councilman Schisler.
I have a couple of things. I believe it's 20,000 was the number that was bandied around for the 4 extra hours on Sunday. It was about $20,000, and it was not kept in the plan at that point. Regarding the transit lawsuit, the transit tax lawsuit, that I believe we're defendants in that. Okay. How much have we expended, or how much time have you expended thus far in trying to defend against this lunacy?
We haven't really expended any money because I've been defending the city in the lawsuit, and it's part of my responsibilities, and I'm paid by salary, not by the hour. As far as my time that's been spent on it, I would say roughly 7-8 hours now. I've attended 2 court hearings and have had numerous phone calls that I will not go into now.
Councilman Chalura.
Just comments. Mr. Stevenson, you guys have probably done this, but as we were sitting here, we were talking about B&Bs. We're going to have a workshop. But if you go online to Airbnbs, they're all over Temple Terrace. The house behind my office is a B&B, and I didn't even know it. I'm looking through this thing. They're renting these things like the Rustic Manor. It's $40 a night, cheaper than a hotel. Some of these apartment complexes are now renting by the night. So I just noticing that here. But I also want to make sure that we, I know you guys have been doing a really good job with code enforcement, but I think that there's opportunity out there, and I don't want to say that in a negative way, but I think there's people that are bucking the system. And by that I mean there's homes that are not being homesteaded, that are homesteaded that are not being up. The one tonight was a perfect example. The guy's mom owns it, but he's living in it. And, you know, there's other ones, the ones that the folks came up tonight about the Airbnb, same thing. So just, I'm sure it's the overall picture, but maybe if you guys have an idea when you come back to us with the workshop, give us maybe a guess of how many of these are in Temple Terrace. But on here, I just was going through, there's Meadowwood, there's Summit West, there's Victorian Village across the street. I mean, they're all around us. I didn't even know it was that big of a thing here in Temple Terrace.
There's VRBO.
And they're cheaper than hotels. So anyways, I mean, you're going to get back to us. I don't want any kind of answer, but, and you guys have probably seen all this, but I wasn't aware that this was such a big problem in Temple Terrace, but it seems like it is.
It's a big problem everywhere. I mean, we're not the only ones dealing with this issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Chalura. And I just wanted to publicly thank Christina Stam and the team in customer service who have just so excitedly embraced leading out with the Relay for Life, and the great support from all of our staff members. For citizens who aren't aware, our city staff just take that on as over and above their other work, and just really supporting the Relay for Life and those who have survived cancer in a way of remembering others. So if you have an opportunity to thank the team in customer service, they headed up a chili cook-off this week. Bragging rights for the next year went to the Public Works Department with Julie Vaccaro as the winner. The gentleman to my right is enjoying a second place status, and Anthony Hamby from the, well, right if you're watching it on TV. And Anthony Hamby from the fire department came in third. But just again, want to thank our staff for always going above and beyond to again create that sense of community. And if there is no further,
And Mayor, I found a box of lost ballots in the back room here.
he is launching an investigation. There are hanging chads and cheese. I don't know.
Madam Mayor.
And if there, Mr. Stevenson, yes.
If I can just, two more points real quick. To Gil's point, I'm sorry, Mr. Schisler's point about the Golf and Country Club, I did hear from Mr. Stats today. He is no longer interested in attending and representing the city. So we're going to have 2 new appointments, and we've made provisions already to try to advertise for that and get that to you at the next meeting so that we can not lose any continuity with that. So just to let you know, we did resolve that today. Also, there's a memo from me to the mayor and council members that talks about the impact of the interest payment to Republic Bank. That being the $3,362,000 that we put towards the bank note with Republic. Allows us to now start paying, instead of interest on the $10 million, paying interest on $7 million. It essentially reduces our obligation on a monthly basis by about $10,000, $11,000. So just for the record, you've got a memo from me, but I needed to get that out there so that people know what we're doing with our money. I'm sorry?
So that everybody else knows.
Thank you. And if there's no...
We're doing our best to spend money properly.
Thank you. And if there's no further business to come before this body, we stand adjourned.